Hey you guys, it's Cami with Coast DIY and welcome to your Coast DIY Craft Kits 101. I'm actually really excited about this. So in this video, I'm gonna kind of walk through the basics of my kits, what you can expect. I'm gonna show you a few things. I'm actually gonna make a kit, so this will double as a tutorial on that kit. And you can fast forward if you don't need the 101 and you just wanna see that kit. But I'll kind of walk through things that you'll see in the kits. It'll be good if you've never bought one of my kits, you can see what to expect. And so just kind of wander through the video as you need things. The kit that I'll be doing today is a really big kit. So once I talk through some of the basics of the kit, I'll do some fast forwarding sections. You don't need to see me replicate everything. It's a really big kit. But once I do that, then I'll bring it back and I'll show you how to glue it together and show you the final product. So let me talk about what the kits look like when you get them. So it's a different kit, but generally when you get them, depending on whether you pick them up at the Painted Tree or if you get them mailed to you, they're gonna come packaged and they may have 1 or 2 layers of packaging. So I try to do some layer of shrink wrap packaging because I like to make sure things don't shift too much. They are made out of maple plywood, so my products come out of maple plywood. And depending on the kind of product that it is and the design, if they're not aligned properly in the shipping, they could break. And so I work hard to try to layer things properly, kind of like this is layered. So like if this snowman's mitten arm was not setting on something on top of that and you know the box gets crushed, it could break. Not to say that it can't get broken anyway, and if it does, you just message me. But I do my best to try to set them up so that they'll go properly. The other thing is if you're buying it at the Painted Tree, they get handled a lot, and so I find that it's good to have them shrink wrapped there as well. Now, when you open these shrink wrap packages, make sure you're over a table, you're over something, because there's lots of little pieces when you open them up. If it falls into your carpet or something like that, you might lose a piece. If you lose a piece, message me also, okay? And you know, not to say that something could happen in packaging and I've lost a piece. So just message me. We'll talk it through. I'll send you something, okay? All right, so this will give you just a general sense. This is the Snowman Essentials. It's the snowman that goes in the Coast DIY Christmas Village. So this is a 2023 edition. So this is what they'll look like. And if you were to get this in your in the mail, it might look like this. If you get it in the Painted Tree, there's going to be another envelope on or another bag around this, okay? And then you'll also get some level of instructions, and depending on how complicated the piece is, if it's like a simple design, you probably just get a photo of the piece itself. But if it's a little more complicated, I take the time and write up some instructions. Sometimes I just say paint or stain it. I don't generally give a lot of how to paint instructions or how to stain instructions in there, unless I need to make a suggestion that says paint the back of something because you may see it, or paint the front, or well, paint the front obviously, but different kind of tips and things like that you're gonna find in here. So for example, I say on here, this is the gingerbread house one. I just grabbed this off the counter. So I say you're building, you're gonna paint both sides because it's a single piece and you see both sides of the building. So I give you tips and tricks in here. If I've done a video or there's a video that's similar to the piece that will help you, I will have a link and a QR code that you can go watch. So all of that's gonna be in there. Most of them are like one sheet with a bottom. Some of them like the, I think like the Santa's Workshop is like 2 sheets. So I don't skimp. And then like on this one, you can see I even give you a photo of what the back looks like. A lot of my designs, I give you front and back designs. So this will show you what they both look like. Okay, so that kind of gives you high level what they look like. So let's talk about what the kits look like. So this one that I'm doing is a vintage stove. It's meant to go with, this is a baking Santa, and it's meant to go with the baking Santa. And so it's just a stove, and let's see if I can turn this around. It's a stove with like a ton of parts, right? So that's the stove. So let's talk a little bit about the piece itself. So this is going to get a little detailed. Oh, I'm going to get the right, there we go. So, and you'll have to do this too, right? When you get the piece, some of the things you'll want to do is like dry fit your pieces together to make sure that they go together. There's a front and a back to the wood. So when I cut the piece in the laser, you know, obviously there's the top and then there's the bottom on the laser. On the bottom of the piece, when it cuts on the laser, it's going to leave a certain pattern, and I'm going to show you how you tell the difference. Okay. This is probably a good piece to show you because the front and the back really doesn't matter on this piece. This is an inside piece to give it depth that I've created on the stove. I wanted it to be really thick so it would stand on its own. So I created these spacers in the stove. So it doesn't, you're not gonna paint them. It doesn't really matter. So I even cut out extra wood to save everybody money. But this is the front, and on the front, you can see that it creates a burn on the edges. I leave the burn. I like the burn. I could mask the wood to prevent that. I don't do that on purpose. I like the burn. So my kits will always have this burn on the edge. But let me show you oh, this is good because I have two of them, right? So this is what the back looks like. See the difference? See, it's all kind of messy, choppy, bumpy. That's a back. This is a front. Now, and sometimes, like, you know, plywood has glue in the center. Sometimes it gets sometimes it flames up. So that's a place where it flamed up. And you can't see it on the front, but it'll show on the back sometimes. So this is the front. This is the back, and that's how you know, right? Now, most of my designs, they're meant to be displayed on the front, and if there's a back, most of them, I've created a back so that it would, instead of you doing like this, where you would say front, back, I've created it to be like this, where you've got fronts on both sides, so it looks nice on both sides. So I do that work. So the stove is a good example. So the stove has this piece on the front, and on the back of the stove, right, this piece, which we know to be the front of the wood when you cut it, this will actually be the back of the stove. This is what you'll see when it's put together on the back. Hope that makes sense. So that it's got a nice finished piece on the back. So I've done that on purpose, reverse the design so that it looks nice on the back of it. So I've done that on purpose. There are a few designs, like, let's say, actually I can show you, I've created an ornament version of the stove, so I'll be doing that next here. So the ornament version, in order to save wood and not, sometimes I don't add that second layer just to keep the price down, because I don't want to add wood just to add wood. So in order to keep the price down, I've only got the flat back, because on a Christmas tree you're not going to see the back, so I don't feel the need to add that piece. You're not going to have that. Let's see if I can hold these pieces on here. So see, you're going to have that on the back. My suggestion would be either don't worry about it. I'll show you that you can sand it off, or you could paint it black or like a dark brown, and you really won't see it. So those are the options to do with that. But so it's maple plywood. I generally use 2 thicknesses of wood. If wood is not available, that may change over time. I don't have control over the wood supply, but I do try to go with the same wood. Wood has not gone down since the pandemic. That is one of the struggles as a wood supply business, but I do try to use the best wood that I can because I think it does make a difference in the kits. And I want you guys to have a good product. Okay, so that's kind of the wood that I use. I do use lasers, and the laser does create a burn, and I personally like the burn. I think it gives it a certain look, and I think that's good. Now, can you remove the burn? Of course you can. You could use let's see if I've got a piece over here. I could try to, okay, this is the salt shaker from a different version that I've done. And it's just an emery board file. So look at this bottom part, see how that's been burned? You can use sandpaper, sanding block. This is just what I happen to have right here. So you can start to see that's coming off. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but you can see it does come off. You could use a baby wipe. It's not going to be as successful, and just like with the reason that this is doing this is because it starts to bring out a little bit of the glue that's on the inside of the plywood, and it creates a residue on the top. And because that's what it is, baby wipes I think are not quite as successful as sanding and removal of that, but it is removable if you want to do that. You can also cover it with paint. If you're going to do like a white or something that's a little more translucent, I do suggest removing it if you don't like that look, or do a couple of thin coats, okay? Because it may take a couple of coats to cover it. So that's just a couple of tips. Okay. Now, when you are putting together a kit of mine, and that one's backwards, but I generally try to put together, you will generally get it put together mostly in the way that it's supposed to be put together. Now, sometimes when I have to pack it or ship it or send it, like this is a good example. It's not really safe for me to send this with this gap like this, because that could crack. And I don't want to do that. So I will probably ship this not in this exact configuration. So I want you to, when you first get it, lay it all out, look at your pieces, see what you've got, make sure you've got everything. I am human. I am definitely a flawed human. I would say I'm much more creative than organized. So anything can happen. And especially when I've got designs with these thousands of pieces, you know, if I've got a big 80-pound dog jump on me in the middle of me packing a kit, if I lose a muffin, a 1/4-inch muffin, it's possible. So if you are missing anything, you simply message me and I will 100% take care of you. So just, you know, lay it all out. Make sure you understand where it goes. Use your photos that you get with it, lay it out. It may influence the colors that you use if you know where the pieces lay, that sort of thing. So I like to do that. Then you'll lay these pieces out, make sure you've got the tops up, that sort of thing. And make sure you understand what the pieces are. I have had people message me and go, what is this? Because, you know, when you first look at it in its small little piece, it doesn't make sense. This is a salt shaker or like a grinder. This is a frosting bag, if you're wondering. And this is supposed to be like a cutting board, so, or like a breadboard kind of thing. So sometimes I am 100%, oh, and this is like a pan, like a pot. I feel like I know what it is, but you know, hopefully you do too. So lay it all out and then make sure you know what it is, and then you can get started. And you know, here's the thing, it's crafting. I want you to have a good time. I want you to relax. I want you to enjoy it. Obviously, I would love for you to enjoy the outcome, the product, but for me, it's really about the process. So that's the big thing. So let's talk a little bit about what I think are kind of the main things about painting or staining. So you're gonna see that in my kits, I use almost exclusively stain. I even sell it, I offer it. I don't, gatekeep. I'll tell you where to get it. You have to buy it in quarts. It's Minwax water-based stain. You can get it at Lowe's. You gotta buy it by the bunch, but I do sell it. I sell it in kits. I sell it in these little containers, and even though this looks like it's not a lot, I got several videos out there, and I will make sure there is part of this series that this will last you a long time. So you can do several kits with a set of stains. So don't feel like they're not going to last you. I like stains because it allows these details like this. It just makes it really easy to execute. I just think it makes it easy, and I like the look. So that's just personal. Now I'm gonna do this this stove in red. This is my second stove that I'm painting. I did a first version of this, and I'll tell you what I did. I finished it. You're gonna see a picture of a green stove. That green stove, when I designed it, I did not remove the feet in these center two layers. And then it dawned on me as I was looking at it, like I could remove those feet and it'll look better. So we're doing that because I want it to look good. But I'm gonna do this version in red because I think I could do red and green. I'm gonna make this one look like Santa. I think that'll be cute. So we're gonna do red, and I'm just gonna start painting, and I will talk you through some tips and tricks. I'm gonna start on this front piece. I'm gonna set the feet aside for a second, and I'm gonna show you how I know. Let me kind of pull this back together for just a second. So right here, if I set this up, so I can see that what I've done on this one is there's this score line to help you know where to paint the inside of the stove, right? But I mentioned that these are spacers, right? Literally spacers. You see nothing. I'm gonna set these aside. I'm not gonna paint these. That would be a waste of paint. I'm not gonna do anything to those. Also, if I look at this piece here, I only need to paint the top. I'm not gonna paint this. I'm not even gonna paint the feet. Okay, so when I get to that, I'll only paint the top. I'll set that aside, and I'm gonna paint the inside of this. I'm using the Christmas stain kit colors. I need to get me some more mustard stain. I'm not running out. And I'm using, there's a party pack kit, and it's got a set of brushes in it. Look at my brushes. I use this one for glue, and I put a dot of glue on the bottom to help me know that I use that for glue. I'll give you some other tips. This is an old Costea. Look, it's got my name. I used to use it for my coffee in the shop. Now I use it for paint. So I always use this for paint. I've got my brushes, for water, for my paint. This is just a lap board that I paint on all the time on my kitchen table. Apparently I've painted on my kitchen table, but this is glass, so that'll come off easy. It is a plate, but it's a wax covered plate. You could use foil, you could use wax paper. Don't use a paper plate that is gonna soak up your stain or paint, because it will take all the water out of it, and it will actually it'll waste some of your product. So don't do that. Okay. I'm not gonna talk about how to stain or paint in this video too much, because I've got other videos that do that. But I did wet my brush a little bit, and I'm just gonna really fast, because I'm not gonna worry too much about these edges on this design, knowing that I've got this that's gonna go right on top, and it's gonna cover my edges. I'm kind of doing it yellow, like the lights on in the oven. I have to shout out to my aunt on this design. When I first designed it, I had just like a rectangle on the front. Like a, you know, just a stove door. And she was like, no, you need something in the stove. I think it's much cuter open. Okay. So super simple. Now let's talk about painting with score lines. So this is what I would call a score line. Score lines versus engraved, okay? This is a good example. The word cookies is engraved. The line across the top of the cookie jar where the lid is, that's scored. Score lines are a single line. The laser does that. And engraving, it could be, oh, this is the snowflake is engraved. The lines across the bowls indicating where the different bowls are, scored. So engraveds are gonna be deeper, thicker, removes a lot more of the top part of the wood, and it will show off, and it burns. Like, technically, what you're seeing is the inside of the plywood at that point, okay? Let's talk about how to handle both of those things, okay? Let me see if I can. All right, so let's talk about scoring. I have this here. You can use a straight pin, safety pin, it doesn't matter, to clean out score lines, not engraved lines. I mean, I guess you could do engraved, but score lines are easier because it's a single line. So let's say I want to do, I'm gonna do the lid white, so it's easier for you to see. I am using stain. Okay, and then, let me see, there we go. I got a little bit of stain on the edge there, right? All you gotta do is take your pen and just run it just like that. And do it when it's wet, okay? You can do that for paint and stain. The good thing about stain though, talking to the top and bottom of my mouth. Stain soaks into wood, paint sits on the top of wood. Or paint, not paint, paint sits on the top of wood. So what I like about stain when you're dealing with like your score lines is, even if you get a little bit in the score line, if your paint or if your stain is kind of watered down a little bit, it will still go into the groove of the score line and soak in a little bit. So again, other videos for that, but I really do like it for that reason. Right. So let's talk about the engraving. So the engraving is going to be deeper, right? It's cutting more of the wood out. So when I paint an engraved section, see how your brush can be flat? I tend to paint like this. Not like this, because when you go like this, you have a tendency to push down like that. If I do like this, I'm kind of dragging along the top. So I have a tendency to try to do that more. I'm gonna do green, just to pick a color that you could probably see better. And I'm gonna do the section that doesn't have the engraving first. Right? And I don't have a ton of stain on my brush. Same with paint. You're gonna do better if you're using paint to have to do a couple of coats than to try to glop it all on at once, okay? So all I'm gonna do is very lightly drag across. I'm not gonna stress if I don't get a good coat on the first time, because all I have to do is get just a little bit more on my brush and do the same very light motion. Very light motion, don't get frustrated. See? Now I tend to like a light look, it's my style, but I could do that 2 or 3 more times if I felt the need to, and it would get darker, okay? Easier to build up color than to, you can't really get it out of the grooves. Now, let's say you get a ton of color in the grooves. Here's what I would do. Fill in the grooves. I would paint this whole thing green. I'd get all the way in the grooves green, and then I would do it again and come back on top with maybe a red or something so that my grooves would be green. I'd let it dry, fully dry, and then I would paint the cookie jar red and the letters would look green. So, you know, even if you do something, you work into it. No big deal. The dogs are gonna bark. Okay, I'm rinsing my brush, and I'm gonna go in for some red. And I've got a pretty wet brush. I'm not too worried that I went over on that line a little bit because I know I've got that frame. And I haven't decided how dark I want my red to be. So I'm gonna do this kind of light, like this first. Now with stain, again, I've got other tutorials on stain, but just real quickly, stain soaks into the wood. So they're gonna play. So the second I'm touching it, it's going in, right? And you have to worry that it could create like lines, right? So you kind of have to move a little fast with stain. It is not the same as paint in that respect. Paint, you can move a little slower, but I mean, I don't think I moved that fast. Now, if your brush is wet, like I, was using, I just dipped it in the water, I didn't rinse anything off, it does make it easier. A wetter brush is gonna give you a little bit more time to work. Okay. I didn't do the feet because I know I've got these little extra feet to go on the front. I'm gonna let that dry, and then I'm gonna do just the top of this piece. And there's this goes on the front of that, so I don't need to worry too much about that. On the edges here, there's a good burn, and what you're gonna notice is with stain is that shows through a lot. That's the look I personally like, and it gives you a shadow effect without doing any work. I'm a lazy crafter. Okay, I'm gonna let that sit. I'm gonna let it dry. I probably will do a second coat, but to get a darker color, it has to be dry. Okay. And then I have to think through my colors, but let me show you just a couple of things with these little pieces. And then I'm going to go into speed mode because I don't think you need to see. I want to show you the white, and I want to show you a brown trick with these. Now, generally, think about your watercolors. I usually try to get all my white done before I do red and black and colors like that, because once you start rinsing your brush in those things, it can color your white stain or paint a little bit. So just think about that. You may have to get fresh water. Okay. Now, white needs to be watered down a little bit more. When I get the white stain, I get it in a solid versus semi-transparent, because semi-transparent, you can't see anything. It's almost like it's not there. I'm gonna, I'm gonna do this in white. Now, there's lots of lettering here, and I'm doing white, right? I don't really want white in my letters, and there's a risk. So I want you to kind of see how wet my brush is. It's very wet. So I will always brush off of the letters first, just so I can see how much stain and stuff I've got. See the condition of my brush. And that feels pretty good. And you'll have to practice, you'll get used to it. And then I'm going as flat as I can go, slowly. And if you notice, it looked like I got a lot in there, but because it's stained, it's soaked right down in those holes pretty quickly, and you're not going to see it. I'll show you real quick. You can see it looks like it's filling the holes. Sorry. Look at the bottom of the N in baking. It looks like there's a lot there. Let me get this while I've got white on my brush. I'm gonna show you a trick. I'm gonna get a detail brush. I'm gonna get it wet. And I'm gonna go right into that engraved section with a wet detail brush. And I'm just touching that white stain. And the brush is soaking it up. And it pulls it right up. So that's another little trick to use. You don't have to wait and see what's going to happen. If you get too much white stain in there, just take a small little detail brush, get it a little bit wet, and pull that stain right out of that engraved section. Done. So I'm going to do that again on the flower. And sometimes with white, you need to be prepared for a couple of coats. Even though I get it in solid, it just depends on how much white you want. Got a little bit in the R, but I think I'm going to be okay. Let's see. It's actually going down pretty quickly even before I got to do this. But takes it right away. Let that dry. Now let me show you a trick with brown. Brown is even easier because the engraving is brown. Rinse and my brush really good. Now the color that I've got is dark walnut. There's also a toffee in the Christmas colors, but I'm gonna use dark walnut. Another one that's really good to use is Early American to do this. I'm getting a very little bit, very wet, very little bit. Let me see if I can show you. See? Very little bit of stain, and this is, let me do cocoa. It's a bigger piece. I'm going right over the whole thing. Because it's brown, you don't have to worry about it. And because it's stained, it's already soaked in. Look. Love it. I can do nutmeg. I can do brown sugar, even though this is a little dark for brown sugar, but it's the one that I have. Cinnamon, I'm gonna touch in my red. It's a lot of touch. I mean, I barely touched it, but I got a lot of red. It's all right. You can mix your stains. Okay. So see how that white on that has dried? I want you to look at that like that. Now see, I'm actually okay with how this one looks because of what it is, but because this is where the Baking Spirits Bright is on the design, I'm gonna do one more coat. I want it to stand out just a little bit more. Very little, I don't have a whole lot on here. I'll do just a quick. I got a little heavy-handed there. That's going down pretty quick. I don't even think I need to do this, but I just want to show you that you can. All I'm doing is touching anywhere that the stain got a little in my engraving, and it cleans it up so quickly. Okay. And then the last thing I'm going to show you before I go into speed mode is a double coat on the red. And then I'm going to turn the camera up and just kind of move into double time or something. And then I'll come back and we'll chat when we glue it together. So this is, it's still a little wet. I probably should have let it dry a little bit longer. But you can already see you get quite the difference in color right away. You can do as many coats as you like. You're gonna get much more color out of several thin coats of stain than you would out of one heavy coat, just because of how stain works. And definitely let them dry in between. Don't get your pieces really wet. It is wood. Don't go crazy. I may have to, I'm trying to match him. So I may go one more after this one dries. Okay. All right, so I'm going to move this to overtop view. I will be doing all these little pieces, which you don't need to watch me do in slow motion. And then I will come back and we will glue it together. Okay, I'm pretty sure I've painted everything, and now we're gonna glue this baby together. Now, let me tell you about my favorite glue. Titebond Quick and Thick. You can get it at Lowe's, you can get it on Amazon. If you get it on Amazon, look for like the 2 for deals. That is gonna be your cheapest way to get it. You can use anything, dogs, anything that's good for wood. You can use. You can even use school glue. That's fine. Something for faster. Sorry. I like this simply because it is quick and thick. It is going to give you, it's going to hold together faster and let you move on to the next step. That's just personal for me, but it's not necessary. You can use school glue. Some things may take a little longer to hold together. One thing that we did in the shop, which I still have, this is a brick. It's heavy. We covered it in just some canvas fabric, just so it wouldn't scratch anything. This is fantastic to have. You can put things together and put some weight on it and leave it to dry. So, you know, any glue is going to take a long time to fully cure, but I kind of like this because it will stabilize fast enough for you to move on. Just a tip. But like I said, anything that's good for wood is fine. So let's glue things together. Now, one thing I did, these were the center pieces that you don't see. So I kind of went ahead and glued those together. I think I mentioned that I have a glue brush. It just kind of happened one day. I don't even know how this got on the end of that brush. I truly do not remember, but it has become my glue brush. As long as I even stick this in my paint water. As long as it's water-based, so as long as this stays wet, you can rinse it and it stays soft and malleable. And I just put out a little bit of glue based on the size of the project that I'm gonna glue, and then go from there. So that's how I do it. If you have a project that has glue in it, often it's gonna be this glue. I like to give you the good stuff. And so I'm gonna kind of start with this piece and make sure you know what goes where when you do it. Less is more when you're gluing sometimes. You don't want to have too much ooze out, but you know, you also don't want to have no glue. You know, I've been known to underestimate how much glue it'll have and then it just doesn't stick. So you can kind of see how much I'm putting down. The thing about a brush that I actually like is that you can put a nice thin layer down and you can brush it out. So when you push it down, it doesn't ooze out as much. It really stays on the piece. So this part here, the only thing you have really to align it to is this jut out part here and the sides. So you're gonna wanna hold it. Give yourself some patience. Here's the thing about wood. Wood is wood, right? It's never gonna be perfect. It's never gonna be perfectly straight. When I cut in the laser, I have these pins that I use that hold it straight, hold it down to the base so that the design cuts straight. So you don't have to worry about that. But, you know, when you put water stain paint on wood, anything can happen. So it can have a little warp to it by the time you get to gluing it. So just hold it. If you're using the Titebond Quick and Thick, it doesn't take that long for it to seat itself. That's kind of why I like it. And again, depending on your patience and tolerance, you could do something like this. Get it really good and lined up and gently set that down. You know, make sure it doesn't shimmy on you or shift. If you use a lot of glue, what can happen is things can slide on that glue. So be careful, don't use a lot of glue. Just checking. This top part here is wanting to stick up, so I'm gonna hold that for a second. I'm not gonna make you watch me glue every piece on. I will speed up the video at some point, but I do just wanna talk through a couple of basics. Keeps, so you can hear that popping up. Don't let it pop up. Be patient with that. You know, if you like the technique, you could have sanded the edges down a little bit. You might do that before you glue it together. You could also do it after. Doing it before, you are able to get all the edges easier. So that's an option. See that piece? Hear that? It's not wanting to stay down for me. I feel like it's still wet in there, but I'm gonna, this glue dries clear. And I'm squeezing really hard. Actually, I'm gonna use my brick. Now that the majority of it's stabilized. Oh, yeah, this is good, watch. So then I can move on to this little piece. I'm gonna let that do its thing. Just put a little bit of glue around here. I mean, the good thing about these kits is you're not building a house. So you don't need that kind of structure. So use the score marks to align this piece. And then while that's still wet, I would say put this piece on so you can get the spacing like you like it. I'm aligning so they're aligned up and down, and then these outer sections are about the same. I'm just using my eye. I'm not really. If you wanted to, you could do something like this. Use one of these pieces and double check yourself. See how fast on a piece like this, those are already holding on enough for me to lift it? That's what I like. I'm gonna go ahead and put these little feet pieces on. Now, anything that is meant to be to the ground, to the bottom, that holds it up, you want it flat, because that's what makes it stable. Obviously, I've created it to have a flat base, meant to be flat. You could do, again, something like, take a piece like this, I would use the back, and, you know, line them up like that. Or you could actually, I'm gonna put my glue brush in water to keep it wet. You can't quite see me because of the brick, but I am touching them to the, well, I'll show you up here. I'm letting them, it's not quite flat on the brick, but I'm using that to make sure they're aligned. And it's pretty easy to see because you can see the unfinished wood. Give it a good squeeze. Don't assume that they're adhering on their own. I'm taking more time on these because these, you know, this is what it's going to stand on. And I'm checking the edges by rubbing them and making sure they feel like they're aligned. Looks good. Let that sit for a sec. I can also put this little trim on while it's waiting. I decided to do these white because I thought it looked like Santa. Kind of went for the pure Santa look on this version. All right, while that's sitting there, I can also put the handle on. A lot of little pieces on this front oven that I can do. This just kind of aligns right in the center. I can put the kitchen towel in the other side. And then I can also put the gingerbread men in the oven. So this little section will be done. Cute. All right, let's check this piece. Make sure that, okay. Still popping off just a little bit. I'm wondering if my brick was in the right spot. See if I had enough glue in there. So this is what I'm doing. I pulled that apart just a little bit so that I could get a good amount of glue in there. It looks like I didn't have any glue in this little section, which explains why it didn't glue. So I'm gonna do this again. And while that's doing that, I'm gonna put this trim right here. Now, it's not gonna have any, let me turn this down. I don't need any glue kind of right there, but it's not gonna really hurt if a bunch of glue dries on here because there's a board on the other side. As long as it's not too thick, it shouldn't impact being able to fit pieces in there. So it's just gonna be easier if I put it all the way across. All right. I'm making sure that's going down. Yep, that was it. I didn't have any glue in there. Okay, so now I'm actually gonna put the back on before I put the front on. I don't want to get too heavy-handed because I don't want this to be so thick that it slides. And every inch doesn't need to be covered. Like I said, you're not building a house. And then this is my back. And notice that when I painted the feet on the back, there's no extra feet down here. I just kind of created a little curve. And I'm just gonna do some at the top because there's no top on this one. Just to make sure I've got enough. Now, you know, if you do this, and let's say all your best efforts and it slides a little bit, and you can see on the edges that it's not perfectly aligned. You know, first off, remember it's crafting. Get glue on this. You know, don't stress out. It's just crafting. But if it bothers you, you can either sand the edges a little bit, or you can take some of your dark walnut or some dark brown, or even like black, and you can stain it, paint it. That looks good. Gonna put a little bit on this while that's doing its thing. Now, while I'm doing this, there's more decorations than maybe you can fit on this piece. I did go a little bit crazy. I'm doing this by feel. So I'll just kind of show you. You just rack and stack what you want. Use the pieces that you love. Get that one on there, and let's get this one on here. Now we can turn it over and put the front. If you have any like glue that comes out like that, you can either just do a little brush kind of like that. Remember, it dries clear if you're using this kind of glue, or just leave it. I don't know why I thought that would stand. I don't have the front on it. All right, so let's put the front on. And I'm gonna just do glue right here. Oh, pro tip, make sure you paint these. I think, real quick, before I put this on, I'm gonna go ahead and put the glue on. I think I'm gonna grab my black paint and get those. Just a quick coat of black on these. On the inside, I didn't even think about it. And then a quick coat of black paint on this side, because you're going to see those. There we go. I'm going to put this under here to level it. For just a second. Here. And now you just have to decorate it. Now, this little channel up here, really it's just kind of for show. I would put glue in them. You don't have to, but I would. So you just put the pieces where you want them. So let's see. Just kind of layer things where you want. I think what I'm going to do is just dip in the pieces in that I'm putting up top, and I'm going to bring down a couple of the little containers, I think. Leave a couple up top. Sugar and cinnamon, maybe. Bring a maybe I'll put the butter up top. So I'm just kind of dipping. I may have to go, look, see, don't be like me. I turned it right over to look at the back and everything fell off. I threw in my sugar. So I may have to go back and think about the backs of my pieces. See that? So I'll go back and I'll paint those. Should have painted them first, didn't. So do that. I'm just kind of aligning these pieces. That's a good back piece just for color. We've got some sugar, some cinnamon. Let's see, I dropped a bunch of stuff. Put the cookies right here. I'll put the cocoa up top. We've got the eggs. I think I put the eggs right in front of the... Oh, we've got the tiered tray. I like that that will let the Pyrex show through. And then I can put the little muffins on the tiered tray. and glue them kind of to the Pyrex for a different kind of layered look. This is the longest video ever. And then, let's see, I'm gonna put the rolling pin maybe right there. And then I'm gonna tuck the salt shaker up top. I've got the little timer, or the scale timer, and sprinkles. I'm gonna put the sprinkles in front of the cookies. Oh, I've got my frosting. I think those are cute. I'm gonna put those right out front. Ready to go. I'm gonna put my scale up on the top. And then I wonder if my nutmeg, I could set my nutmeg right in front of my cocoa. I've got baking soda and I've got cookies on a tray, which I could lay flat, but I kind of filled everything up. So I'm gonna set those aside and not really stress about those. And I forgot to hang my pan, so I'm not gonna worry about that. I kind of like it. Oh my gosh, look how much stuff that is. So cute. I love it. Thanks for sticking around for the longest video ever. I hope you love it. You know, you could, if you wanted to, hang a few things on the back. That actually, you know what? I think I'm gonna do that. Now that I think it would make sense to hang a pot on the back. That makes sense. And then I will be painting my backs of my pieces. So paint the backs first before you glue them on. That'll be easier. Oh my gosh. And look, wait, let me put it next to my, he's already taken his first batch of cookies out. How cute. I hope you love it. I think it's fun. I hope this helped. Some tips and tricks on different kits. I know it's a Christmas kit. This will be out there all year round. It will apply to all the kits. Oh, you're looking at the bottom of me. Enjoy. Sorry for the doggy sounds. The dog's drinking now. I hope you enjoy the kits. I really enjoy making them. If you ever have an idea and it's something I can think that I can execute, then just message me on Facebook. I love to hear ideas. All right, you guys, have an amazing time doing these. I hope you have a good holiday if it's still that time of year. Otherwise, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.